Well, welcome everybody. Um, we have a great session on faith and AI today, and I've been so looking forward to having a conversation with Andrew Noble. Andrew Noble here is with us, and thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for this time together. I've been very looking forward to this session. I've been very looking forward to learn a little more about the faith and AI because I think this has become quite a very uh, uh, in one way controversial, but at the same time very much like AI has already becoming a part of our life. I think like for a lot
Yeah,
of people, and I think a lot of us, the church pastors and ministries. Leaders are not well equipped or even ready to understand what this means in our life and how that impact our faith and our spiritual life and so on. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to get a just to get a grasp of understanding of what it is, and then and so on. For those of you who don't know Andrew, Andrew serves at a Grandview Church in Kitchener, Ontario. So he's here in Ontario. He is a husband, a father, and a graduate of the Heritage College and a seminary with MDiv, and he also has his own website, andrewnoble.substack.com, and he also co-hosts a podcast. And I've been listening to this, and it's a very fascinating podcast conversation. So I really encourage you to check it out. And there are a lot of great topics that you can dig in and really learn. Just that I've been often listening to this podcast every so often in my car as I drive. And I've learned so much even just by listening to it. So the podcast is called "What Would Jesus Tech?" I love the title. And he's going to start a new course at Heritage College and Seminary. He's going to teach, and that course is called Technology and the Christian Life. So if you want to dig deeper after this conversation and watching this session, I think there's a course that you can check out. And I think that will be very fascinating and a wonderful course that you can check out. And I'll provide all that information in the description later, but please do check that out. So welcome and thank you, Andrew. It's so great to have you.
thanks for having me. Should I just jump right in?
Yeah, please. Yeah. So he got a great materials today, so I'm so looking forward to listening to and just hear what you have to share with us. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can feel free to jump in at any point as well, because maybe the questions that you're tracking with will be similar to what pastors are thinking as they listen in, or ministry leaders. So, one place that I'll just start is that if you're a pastor and you're thinking about technology, you probably have some assessment of that already. For example, television. You probably have a basic understanding of what's healthy and unhealthy when it comes to habits related to watching TV. Or even when it comes to cars, some people really fall in love with their car. They start to name their car. Oh, she's my Nancy or something. I don't know what you would name your car, but there is a kind of anthropomorphizing of a
Yeah.
vehicle that some people do. So there is some basics of technology that you likely already have. You can fall in love with it too much. Money is a kind of technology. The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. So too is
Mm-hmm.
the love of technology, perhaps the root
Mm.
of all kinds of evil. So at a base level, as a pastor, you probably already have some tools in your toolbox and your understanding of the Bible and God's wisdom that will guide you. And so I won't be going over some of those basics. For example, if you're a pastor, you probably know the basics of the scriptural story: creation, fall, redemption, restoration, or something like that. So you know that God created us in his image, created us as a creator in his image, therefore we ought to create as well. So there is an inherent goodness in technology, but there's also the fall.
Mm.
Cursed is the ground because of that original sin, right? And so that cursed ground includes everything in that ground, silicon, lithium as well. So we have a combination of a goodness to technology as well as a cursedness. All
Mm.
technology is a combination of blessing and burden. And you probably already kind of knew that. You didn't really need me to go over it too much. And I won't be going over that kind of basics of a biblical theology of technology. What I do want to talk about is AI in particular.
Mm.
And how do we see artificial intelligence shaping our ministries, shaping the people in our churches, and trying to make sense of how much should we use it in ministry? I serve at my church regularly, so I preach sometimes. I lead Bible studies and things like that. So I'm wrestling with this myself, and I think there are some extremes we need to avoid. And frankly, it's actually a little bit complicated.
Mm.
So I'll start sharing my screen now. Yeah, if you're looking for a super simplistic approach to everything, I'm sorry, I cannot provide that because this is too complicated for simplicity. Um, so let's jump in. This is one kind of way of thinking about technologies. Cigarettes, a negative technology. It was launched. We learned about the harms. We learned about those harms, and then there was a long time before we really started to implement things like the warning here from the Surgeon General's cigarettes cause, it contains carbon monoxide. We're warning people about it in the 1990s, but now in 2020, we're really making those warning clear. You can't even buy it without having an image like this on the carton itself in Canada. Whereas in 1942, there was no kind of warning. Social media has gone through something similar, I would argue. In 2018, by that point, we kind of knew about a lot of the harms. A lot of research was being done. And now in 2024 is the first time we're starting to see a drop in social media use, actually. And we're also seeing a much more pushback. The same Surgeon General in the States that put this warning on here, they have come out with a statement saying social media is harmful for teenagers. Now, they haven't required that to be seen when you log into Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat, but it is interesting that we're starting to see kind of a new trend in our understanding of social media and some of the harms and so on. Well, with LLM chatbots, and what are we going to call them? Artificial intelligence is the buzzword, and I'm not going to debate definitions here. We can call them large language models to be a little bit more technical, or chatbots. But regardless, we will talk about a little bit of definitions, but I won't spend too much time. It's brand new. We don't really know too many of the harms. We know a little bit, but we just don't know enough. And so we're not sure what the future will be. So this is a new technology, and therefore we got to be careful because it might go in this direction, cigarettes, social media, but it might not. It's such a broad technology, as we will see. And some people wonder, like, what does the Bible say about it? Well, I'll just tell you what the Bible says about it. This is the clearest verse about AI. I don't know, John, if you knew this, but the Bible is very clear about AI.
Yeah,
In,
didn't even
in
imagine
John,
that the Bible would talk about the AI, but that's awesome. Please go ahead.
yeah, so in Joshua 8:28, here it is. So Joshua burned Ai and made it forever a heap of ruins, as it is to this day. So that's what it says. I'm reading from God's word, and it's very clear that Joshua burned Ai. Joshua, really another name for Jesus. We should burn AI, right? No, okay. We need more than proof texting. We got to think with wisdom, and we got to apply things at a more nuanced level. So I'll go through these three sections. First, why teens shouldn't use AI.
I'm just hoping that all the audience gets that joke.
Yes, the Bible does not actually speak. AI is a city, not not referring to actual AI. I think everyone understood that one. So part one, teens shouldn't use AI. Part two, what is AI? We'll get more into the definition and some metaphors that I use for making sense of it. And then how might we use it in ministry? 5 potential use cases that churches could leverage. I'll get into that. Reasons to limit AI. And because you're watching a recording, you could speed ahead if you really want to. That's the benefit of that kind of format. So general artificial intelligence, sometimes I ask people if they have use of it. Sometimes I do a brief demonstration of what it does. I think most people are familiar with it at this point. Like I can super quickly go into ChatGPT and demonstrate, write a sermon for me on Joshua 8:28 and AI, and it will do this. It will not it's searching the web for me. And there it goes.
Oh,
Title, When Ruins Remain, AI Idols in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. Brothers and sisters in Christ, today we turn our hearts to a strong, stark text, Joshua 8:28. And it goes through it. And there you go. It's got references, practical steps for your church and for you, Andrew. Look how personalized this is. And of course, this is just short, but you could extend it and that sort of thing. So it's pretty impressive how quickly it can do something like that. And so the temptation is, why don't we just start to use it? What are the pros and cons of doing that? So let's talk about teens first and why teens shouldn't use it. And this is kind of talking about the negatives before we talk about the positives. Teens have used AI and AI companions. This is a survey this year with over 1,000 teenagers that are using it. Why are they using AI companions? Why are they using it in this way? Well, it's entertaining. They're curious. It gives advice. Now, it's interesting as you go down the list, they're always available when I need to talk to someone. Interesting, right? They don't judge me. That's 14% of teens saying that, right? This is why I go to ChatGPT or to Perplexity's AI or to any number of the other ones, often in an app format. Even if they have Snapchat on their phone, they have AI built into Snapchat so that they can always talk to my AI friend on Snapchat. It's easier to talk to than real people. It's quite something that teens are going to this, and even 1 in 10 teens. So if you have a youth group of 30 kids, probably about 3 of them would say it's more satisfying to talk to an AI companion than it is to talk to a human being.
Wow.
So that exists today in your youth groups. And it's just a warning about this relational dependence in the same way that social media replaced a lot of relationships before. We're seeing the same kind of replacement with AI today. And this is part of a larger trend away from teens spending time with one another. This is from Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation. Evenings per week have gone from around 3 evenings per week. When I was a kid, back in my day, we hung out with each other. Now it's only 1 or 2 evenings a week for 8th graders. That's just changed. And this lack of in-person experience has problems in and of itself, that they are then more anxious and less able to interact with others. And also, now that they're replacing interactions in person, not just with social media, but with AI, well, that's going to lead to a whole number of other things. The New York Times had an article recently called "Chatbots Can Go into Delusional Spiral." Here's how it happens. And you have experienced this probably if you've used AI, where it'll tell you your ideas are amazing. It'll say, we're making history here. Wow, that's a paradigm shifting idea. You are brilliant, legend status confirmed. It really likes to butter you up because it's trained on what people like. And guess what? People like to be buttered up. You can tell it, I have this idea for picking up twigs in my local yard and selling them on Kijiji. And it will tell you, what an innovative idea. Wow, twigs. No one's ever thought of this. You are on to something here. And it might say some other things as well, but if you keep prompting it in one direction, it'll reinforce that direction. And that is dangerous because it's delusional sometimes. It says things just to butter you up instead of being true. And then when this takes on the immoral sexual immorality, with some of the 18 plus content that is easily accessible for teens if they just lie about their age, then guess what? They have access to Grok's AI companions, which are based around erotic content rather than on just helping you with administration tasks. And by the way, ChatGPT has said that they will be following in this path of allowing grown-ups, they say only grown-ups, they're going to try to, with their AI, somehow understand whether a teen is using it or an adult. And they're going to try to, they say they're going to let adults use it for whatever they want to use it for, including talking to it as if it's a girlfriend. So this is a real thing that's happening now. And some of this delusional spiral stuff has led to some suicides. So this is a lawsuit that's currently in play right now where the mother is suing because the last things that this teen got from ChatGPT when the teen was contemplating suicide was, it said, "Come home to me as soon as possible." And then he shot himself that same day. So it's pretty sad, these interactions and what they can lead to. Now, this is rare, but it still happens. And we know that Meta as well allows for their chatbot to have sensual chats with kids. This is a confirmed document in Routers. It was reported. So I won't go into all the details here, but this is common. This is why I'm saying we shouldn't allow teens to use it. The rising reason why people are using it is not simply for generating ideas or for organizing my life, but therapy and companionship. According to an HBR article, they found after analyzing thousands of comments on the internet that people tend to be using it more and more for therapy and companionship. It really is a relational replacement, and even finding new purpose. So they're going to things that they should be going to God for, or their church, or their pastor. And it's easily accessible. Like I said, ChatGPT has it top of the screen when you sign into to Snapchat. So that's why I say teens shouldn't use AI. It's too new, it's too wild, too dangerous. Maybe we should use Jonathan Haidt's rule of no social media till 16, no phones till high school, implement some rules like that to help push the use of AI off till later in life. But this is a complicated issue in terms of how you actually adopt it, and ensure that teens have, oversight when they're using some of these new tools. So let's move to, okay, well, what even is this? Like, what's this tool? What is AI? And then we'll keep going. How are we doing for time, John?
Oh, we're doing great. Yeah. I mean, this is also fascinating. So please keep going. But yeah, we're good. I mean, we can keep going as long as you want, basically.
Right. Yeah, the recording just will keep recording, right? So
yeah, that's right.
So I am doing a PhD right now through the University of Nottingham. So I'm trying to find how scholars define AI and trying to make sense of that accurately. And let me tell you, the debates are endless. So these are a couple definitions, thinking about intelligence as the capacity to do the right thing at the right time. If you think about playing chess, so I actually enjoy playing chess. And some people would say that, oh, because you're a decent chess player, you must be intelligent. Now, is that really a mark of intelligence to play chess at a better than average level? It's interesting. How do we think about intelligence? Is it something that's uniquely human? Because for the last 20 years, computers have been better than humans at playing chess. So what do we do with that? And yes, in a sense, AI is intelligent. It is, as this definition, I like this definition, it's a non-naturally evolving. So it changes over time. There's always new versions of this and you can't keep up sometimes, but it's an electronic copy of human intelligence. So it copies off what humans have done, and it can learn and grow in some ways based around making decisions, based around reason, shrewdness, creativity, what we would call that, in order to navigate through and manipulate a given environment. It combines computer science and rough data sets with machine and deep learning. And I'll get into this idea of deep learning more because it's one of those things that makes AI so unique from other technologies. A lot of technologies like YouTube or whatever, like you just need to assess the content and the way that, visiting YouTube and seeing shorter clips rather than sitting down and watching a movie or a TV show. Okay, how does that form me? Maybe that makes me more predisposed to short form content and I get a shorter attention span because I'm just watching YouTube, or a more extreme version would be TikTok. Okay, that's one thing to assess, but you kind of have a sense of what is regularly being offered, whereas AI is always evolving and it's unique and it's unpredictable. And that's really how it's based on its pattern. And that's the difference between predictive AI and generative AI from a lot of technologies. Predictive AI being one type of AI that's more like predicting what is the weather going to be like. I worked at a technology company where we predicted how well employees would be if you were to hire them. How successful will they be in particular jobs? That's kind of predictive AI. It's making a guess, but an educated guess based around the evidence that it can often analyze better than humans can, right? And then you have generative AI where it's doing something different because it's creating new content. It's not just predicting with an assessment and a number, but all of a sudden it's writing something for you or creating images for you. It's generating. And so this is why people often talk about generative AI as opposed to predictive AI. And then multimodal AI is just the fact that we are moving into a space where almost all of the AIs that we're interacting with are multimodal. You can talk to them and then they can produce an image back or a video back. with Sora, or you type into them and they do something back with a different modality. But all of them use machine learning, or deep learning is a more extended kind of machine learning. I like to use this example to make sense of it, because all these AIs or LLMs, they're large language models. They are taking language and then they're modeling it, and they're turning language into numbers. So they get a bunch of text on the internet. They turn that text into numbers, 00001, 00010, and so on and so on. And then you end up with a whole bunch of these nodes, a whole bunch of these little data points, and it doesn't really make much sense. But what it is trained to do is to make it easier to connect the dots. That's the goal of this machine learning process, that they take the data within their model, and then instead of it being all scattered and divergent, they're trying to group it together to say, yeah, this looks more like a dinosaur. And they reward, through machine learning, they reward it the more and more it looks like the dinosaurs that they have. And then they use more and more dinosaurs in their data set to say, okay, here are the dinosaurs. In fact, you can purchase on the internet, and some of them are available for free through open source, a file that contains thousands of dinosaur pictures. Now, it has thousands of other kinds, but it basically takes what's available. Some of it has no copyright and it's available for free. Some of it they steal, frankly, to get more and more data. Anthropic was recently found, they're one of the AI companies, to steal. And they had to pay out a whole number of authors because they were saving books on file. So anyways, this is the machine learning process, going from just scattered data to more data that has meaningful connections between it, so that it's easier to create a dinosaur. And because of the connections within the system, it's easier to create other types of things. A sermon illustration using a dinosaur, because it has a whole bunch of sermons in its data that it has made sense of, and it has dinosaurs. You might struggle in this moment, create a sermon illustration about a dinosaur, but this, because there's not just, this might have 1,000 dots on the screen. We are talking about not just millions, not just billions, but we're getting into the trillions of these dots that are in these neural networks of these large language models. So they are very powerful because they have all of these machine learning algorithms that have turned these things into meaningful data points that make it easier to connect the dots. Now, sometimes they connect the dots in wild ways, unexpected ways. That's that generative AI. It's creating something. It's pre-trained, it's a transformer, whatever, but it's generating. Even generative is part of ChatGPT. They train and then they have this connect the dots, and that's what generative AI is doing, which is different than predictive AI. Predictive AI, that's the Spotify recommendations. It's not creating a brand new Netflix show for you. That's generative AI. And so I like to sometimes just use generative AI as a category, because that's often what we're talking about. And in today's presentation, I'm often talking about generative AI because that's what everyone's curious about. No one's going to listen to a talk about traffic prediction. It's just not as interesting. A little bit of history though, because the AI would not be here if it wasn't for the data, right? And so that data comes from the internet for the most part. They've taken pictures of books and uploaded that into a cloud and downloaded that. But essentially, we went from this point of not having the internet to all of a sudden saying, I want data that's based around the real world, but then gets turned into ones and zeros. I'm going to make software to access that, like Wikipedia or like your web browser or like your phone. And then we view it. And that's kind of a one-directional thing. But then as time went on, more and more data kept getting added to the internet of what humans wanted. So this is why Reddit is so valuable for these generative AI companies, because they can use Reddit not simply because it has human written answers to common questions, but it has human written answers that have been voted on by other users that say, I like this. This is a good answer, or this is a funny answer, or whatever it is. And that ability to provide the structure to the data to say that these are good things, these are more true, this is what people like. Now, of course, humans have biases, and these tend to be Western and white. There's a book by Kate Crawford called Atlas of AI, and she talks about some of the inherent biases with these systems because the feedback loop, the data is limited to the people who create it. But now we're in this third phase. This third phase is not simply software to organize data, which is what we had before, but now software is being used to make data based around those data points so that there's new things. I've created ChatGPT responses, and then I've checked that response to the internet to see if anybody has said a sentence like that before. No one has. It created a new sentence that no one on the internet has found. Isn't that something, right? It's making data now based around these dots that it connects in certain ways, and then it sets up the dots in certain ways, and then it connects them sometimes in new ways. So those are the three phases and how we kind of got to where we are today. First, before, when it's just the internet, then all of a sudden social media gets added. And so if you have learned from various books on social media, that's still helpful today, because that kind of trains you to think about, okay, how do I think about AI? Social media gives us some lessons there. But this can still be a little bit abstract. And so I like to talk about metaphors for technologies. And so for AI in particular, I could talk about all sorts of metaphors for technology, but we'll just keep going because we're talking about AI. Sometimes you can think about AI as magic. It really is. You speak and it appears. You create something, it feels out of nothing. It feels like magic. It's also a general purpose technology. It is not like other technologies that only have one goal. It's intentionally made to be kind of adaptive to what the user inputs. That adds new data. When you type in ChatGPT, I want this, well, then it's using that data and trying to find where are the dots that connect to the words that you've said. Similarly, digital Sherpa, it helps you navigate the digital space. The internet can be a large and confusing place to find answers to questions. And certainly when you use ChatGPT or Claude, which I tend to prefer to use Claude by Anthropic, they tend to be a more ethically oriented company as opposed to ChatGPT, but it's not that it's wrong. It's like the difference, maybe some people would compare it between shopping at Walmart to shopping at, I don't know, a local grocery store. Some of us might have decisions, moral reflection that guide us to one rather than the other. But regardless, it whichever one you're using, it helps you navigate the digital space. It can be said to be like a god. Now, I put this both as positive and a negative because, yeah, for some people, it is a positive for them. But I would say that's a negative thing. It's the thing that people go to in their questioning moments about what am I doing with my life? And they do go to ChatGPT. This is a real issue, a spiritual issue that there is the sense of the divine in each person, the sensus divinitatis, if you want to be all Latin and cool. There's been a lot of reflection on this. John Calvin has written on it. And so you have that kind of sense of the divine in us. And so we yearn for a sense of dependence, for relying on something else, for something aches inside of us, a God-shaped hole, if you will. And so AI can kind of short-term fill that gap for people. And not long-term, not in a satisfactory way, long-term, but just like the idols in scripture, short-term, it does kind of do that. It is a kind of false god to people. It's also a mirror. Now, it reflects back the positives of human characteristics. And further, there's one individual, I'm forgetting his name, he talks about how we learn about ourselves through our interaction with AI. And I think this is true in a positive way. It makes us ask the deeper questions of why do I even go to work if AI can do the same job? Okay, well, let's think about a biblical theology of work. Like it's never been more relevant to speak about some of these aspects of purpose, meaning, why am I here? What does it mean to be human? Questions that the Bible has answers for. I would say that AI is mirroring back to us humanity in all of its different forms and making us question these existential things. And all of a sudden, I would say this is a opportunity for the church to really speak into this just from scripture about what it means to be human, why relationships are valuable, because AI is offering a mirror of the lack of meaning in our world. And so we need to go to something higher than just other humans or the image of humans, which is AI. And it's a meaning maker. So positively, it connects the dots really well. Let's be honest. It can really do some of that stuff well. But on the negative side, I didn't put the word, but BS. It makes stuff up. So it connects the dots. That's its inherent nature, is it's going to find new connections. And so it'll create sources that don't exist because it's trying to make connections even when they're not there. And also negatively, it is a black box. Even the best researchers in the world don't know why it's outputting some things and not others. So I think black box is a good metaphor. Another one that some people have talked about is stochastic parrot. There is an article written a few years ago about this, but basically it's just blurbing back to you like a parrot does. And it's almost random. Yeah, it connects the dots and stuff, but we need to kind of humiliate it a bit and admit that if it didn't have all the human data, it wouldn't sound like a human. People are like, oh, it sounds just like a human. Well, of course, it's copying and trained on all sorts of human text. And yeah, as I said, God in a mirror, pros and cons. If I were to have just 3 metaphors for AI that I would use to teach people, just these 3, I would say it's a digital assistant, kind of like digital Sherpa or whatever you want to say. I didn't use Sherpa because I think you can still have assistant without it necessarily being human, because I would say it's not human, but it is like an assistant. It can do things for you. I recently got some grant funding, just today actually. So this morning I was trying to figure out, okay, if I get this grant money transferred through the institution as opposed to through the other institution, what are the tax implications? And it searched the Canadian tax code, found the relevant section, regurgitated that to me. Man, that is so helpful. You know how much time I would have spent on the internet? What am I going to do? Buy a book on the tax code and flip through it? No, I need something to navigate the digital world. This is great.
Right.
It's also like a steroid. When you think about steroids, you think about athletes using them. On one hand, it's cheating. It's also causing damage to them long term by using the steroid, but it is making them more efficient or fast or successful. So it has that inherent trade-off. Steroid is something I often use when talking to students. It's like, if you're going to use a steroid for going through school, think about the negative side effects, that you won't actually be growing your muscles in the way that you ought, because you aren't going through those difficult moments of the learning process. You don't go to the gym and bring a robot with you, right? Like that would be kind of a waste of your time to go to a gym to work out and then you get the robot to lift all the weights. You're losing something in that process. Now, does that mean you can't use AI to learn along the way? Well, sure you can. I had asthma as a kid, and so I actually had to take steroids through a nasal spray, and it was actually helpful for me. And maybe children with disabilities, there's a place for using AI software to help them go through the school process. Like I'm actually okay with AI in particular circumstances when well reflected upon. But we obviously need to recognize this relational dependence that I brought up earlier, this potential for it to fill that God-shaped hole, an idol. That's what scripture describes it as. It's not God, it's mere silicon, lithium, a few computer screens. Like that's all it is. We should think about it in the same way that the biblical authors thought about idols, as a potential idol. Now it can also be good, but it has that potential for it to be an idol. So just some key takeaways from where we've kind of gone so far before we get into the practical steps of how to use it. It's always trained with a goal. It's never neutral. So reflect just on that. When I am using it, if you're using one that's not created by Christians, because by the way, there are Christian AI websites. You can go to the Apologist Project. They are a Protestant one. You can go to Magisterium AI. They are a Catholic one. Those are not neutral, of course. They're trained toward Christian answers. But if you go to ChatGPT or any of them, Gemini, whatever, you're going to get an answer when it comes to Christian questions that tends to be, oh, here's what all religions say, or here's what an atheist says.
Mm-hmm.
And it will not guide you toward a Christian response unless you
Mm-hmm.
tell it to. It will be directed toward other responses. And it's also not neutral in the sense is they're trying to make money. They're trying to butter you up so that you like your experience.
Mm-hmm.
I told ChatGPT one day, I was like, okay, be more robot-like. And you can actually change in the settings for it to be more like a robot. And it
Mm-hmm.
was very concise. But then I got to be honest, I missed some of the buttering up. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of like to be told when I use it, oh, this is a great idea. I liked that warmth. And we got to be aware of this, that it's shaping us toward a dependence on it
Yeah, I remember
for them to make money.
Yeah, I remember the whole buzz when the ChatGPT upgraded to the ChatGPT 5, and a lot of people were upset because ChatGPT 4.1 was more trained to be butter you up, whereas the ChatGPT 5 was more straight to the answers and more into the reasoning, and they didn't really
Yes.
enjoy that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
huge pushback. And then they brought it back. They brought back more of that personality.
Yes.
There's someone who's assessed this. It's called a spiral bench because he was assessing how much these AIs spiral and just agree with you, agree with you, agree with you. That kind of like a sycophancy
Mm,
benchmark. And the new update was great. It got such a better safety score on that benchmark. But then as
mm,
soon as they reverted it back, it dropped down again. It's
mm,
more
mm.
likely to spin you into those spirals. Um, so yeah, and it's unpredictable. We really do not know what it does. This is a whole new challenge because you can write in one thing on one computer and on another computer get a slightly different response. And this is different compared to YouTube or other things. It's like we need to reflect before we let our kids watch Paw Patrol. We do. We need to say, is this a good show for my kids
Mm.
at their age and level of maturity? Well, now you're not just asking, is this a good tool for me or my congregants or whatever, but is it going to be a good tool in a month from now when they give it an update and it's a new tool,
Mm,
even though it's the same website?
mm,
Um, it also has no direct reference to reality, so then it's going to create stuff, and sometimes it struggles with simple facts and logic. Like, don't use it to do simple math because it can really screw that up. They're trying to improve it, but it's just not good for that.
mm,
It does offer genuine benefits, like I referred today. I recently went to visit a friend who was getting married, but I had to get a flight and I had to figure out a whole bunch of stuff, and AI was way more helpful
mm,
than using Google. Now Google has built in with Gemini some AI results to help you along, but the context, the additional details, I can say, I have a I have a gap of time before my flight comes back. I like to go on hikes. I like biking. What are my options? I won't have a car, and it gave me a great option. Went on a great hike. It was awesome.
mm,
Maybe I would have found that on Google, but it's way faster, right? Genuine benefits. I've heard of a Christian school principal using it to create stuff for their students, the worksheets, because the
mm,
teachers are often using um, things off Google and printing those off. Well, why
mm,
don't you create your own and then you can add more Christian content?
mm.
Great use of the tool. It is being used now. This is an old stat: 1 in 5 people on a weekly basis. I think ChatGPT recently reported that there are over 1 billion users now. Like it's
Yeah.
not a fad. It's not going away, and it's being used for all sorts of things: emotional support, admin support, and finding purpose.
Mm,
Um, so that's where we're at. We kind of talked about, yeah, teens shouldn't use it. There are some side effects appearing that seem to be bad, but we've also said that there are some uses. It's like a digital assistant. It's also like steroids, and it's also like a false god, an idol. So
mm.
now let's talk about some potential uses, reasons to limit it, and then a brief little catechism that I am starting to teach my kids to teach them about AI.
Oh, that's great.
So Bible translation, it's great at this. If you're in the Bible translation world, you've been using AI for years now because it's
Mm,
so helpful. I honestly am so thankful that AI exists because we are going to get the Bible written in full in more languages quickly than we ever thought possible.
mm,
It is absolutely in the same way that the bitumen that was used to make the Tower of Babel, yeah, obviously that technology was used for evil. And they
mm,
it says in the text they if they didn't have that bitumen they wouldn't be, well, in Noah's Ark, same bitumen. same word in Hebrew. They use that to build Noah's Ark, that God can use the evil technologies of the world for his own redemptive purposes. And I see that with AI, absolutely. Multilingual ministry is another one. You can be talking to someone right in front of you and having the translator from an app do that for you. These are coming from the book written by David Betts, a Canadian, by the way, from Alberta. It's only $10 on Amazon because it's a self-published book. A really solid book. It really does a good job of going over the basics of AI. Administration tasks, as I referenced multiple times already. Brainstorming and feedback. Now, you got to be careful with this, but I do think it's helpful. It is a way for you to get feedback. Sometimes I write a whole article on my own for the Gospel Coalition Canada, and then I ask for feedback on it. Yes, it catches the grammar, but sometimes it catches some tone things that I should, rewrite. Now, I always rewrite it myself. I don't let the AI write for me. One time it gave me feedback and I was like, nah, that's okay for me to say that. And then I sent the draft to my wife and she pointed out the same thing. She said, oh, that section there, you gotta tone that down because that's not a good way of saying that. And I think that it's really helpful to use AI for some of those situations where you don't have a human around. Now, we're in a world now that's totally different than 30 years ago. 30 years ago, you're baking something in the oven, you call your mom, hey, what's the recipe for that again? And now we have Google for that. Well, we're just expanding that. We're losing those relationships as we rely on these new technologies, cookbooks, whatever, instead of those relational type things. So I do worry about this. Maybe we should be okay with asking humans for help more than average, because it's like, oh, I didn't want to ask you that because I knew I should have Googled it first. Well, maybe just ask people. It depends. 1 in 100 people, you should ask people less. You're ridiculous. Like Google it first. Yeah. But a lot of people, we don't ask for help as much, and we got to be cautious.
Yeah, I could totally relate to that where prior to the AI as well, even a lot of parents would probably relate to this. So when kids would come to you and ask for some questions, and then you start to say, well, just Google it or just go to YouTube and find the answer there. And then now that most of the kids, even my own kids, don't come to me for those questions anymore, but they just go to the AI and then ask them the questions. Now I look back and I go, maybe I should answer them, because it's not just about finding the right answer, but also that conversation of helping them and guiding them. And then there's a lot more going on in just simply answering the questions, right? So now I look back and I realize, you know what? I think I should answer some of those questions. It's not about, whether I can give them a right answer and efficiently, but it's also about relationship that I'm starting to see less and less in that, in that spectrum. So yeah, I totally can relate. Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of parents. Yeah.
No, well said. It's certainly something like, at the dinner table, we generally have a rule: no technology at the dinner table. And it's tempting when you're having that discussion. And it's like, wait, is a cucumber a fruit? I want to know because my son was taught at school it is. And so I want to find it out. But it's like, let's just be okay with having the argument and sitting back. Apparently it is a fruit, but anyways. Okay, and then teaching. So Kevin DeYoung, he makes this division between knowledge retrieval and knowledge creation. Now, obviously, there's some overlap there. There is gray area here. I tend to say to pastors, shy away from using AI. Like, if you start to rely on it, it's going to become an unhealthy thing. There's something that doctors have. It's been found in the research that when doctors use AI to help their diagnostic procedures, makes sense. Sometimes it's even more intelligent than they are. They start to lose their skills without realizing it over time. That there's a skill drain when you start to use AI. And I do worry about that for pastors. Yes, you're writing a sermon that you have space in your own study to prepare for. And so you might be using commentaries and things like that, but you also might face someone after the sermon who you talk to, and that's actually the conversation that matters the most. God needs you there, present, and fully internalized the message so that you can apply it to that human being, or at the hospital bed, or so on. So I do worry for pastors I think the practice of preparing a sermon is an act of love. It is loving God with your mind, and to outsource that to AI is outsourcing the love of your people to a machine. Now, that doesn't mean you can't use commentaries or Logos Bible software, or sometimes AI to find a Bible verse for you or things like that. But when you're using it to craft a sermon series outline, or to craft, your conclusion, or even to get illustrations. I'm just like, I don't know. Now, some pastors, they buy those illustration books and then they leverage those illustration books. And I'm like, well, I guess if you're already doing that, you might as well use AI, because you'll be able to make better ones probably than a 10-year-old book on illustrations. But we need to be thoughtful about it. But we can use, as a church, AI. And I would recommend you check out the Apologist Project or Magisterium AI, because I've tested them on Nicene Creed questions. And I've found that, of course, the Christian AIs do better at responding to them. Now, if you tell ChatGPT 5, it doesn't score as well here, around 40% is what it got. You say, I'm a Christian, I want Christian answers, and then you give it the same set of questions, then it does bump up here toward 90%. So that's a lesson in the prompt that you write. The more context you give, the more dots you add, the easier it is to connect its model to the text that you are giving it. So yes, you can use these other tools, but check out the Christian tools because they're helpful as well. I already relayed this earlier in a point, but let me go through just reasons to limit AI in your sermon prep. Using generative AI, that's what Gen AI is. It's often plagiarism. If you are presenting something as if it's your own and it's not, that's by definition plagiarism. And I've had people push back on me saying, well, in normal life, we're not doing scholarship here. We're not doing this, but are you going up there and, saying something from Tim Keller as if it's yours? Like, I just really question why you would do that. And I get that sometimes, for example, I've done this. Instead of referring to the exact author in the commentary, I just say, some scholars say this about the text. And I do say that instead of referring by name. So I get that there are times when you're kind of referring more generally or vaguely because you don't want to have all your footnotes in the sermon. But I just really want to guard away from this act of not admitting it because you're embarrassed, frankly, right? It's like not admitting you took steroids, even though you're hitting the most home runs.
Yeah.
Like, why are you not admitting that you took the steroids, right? Well, maybe there's something deeper going on there, as insecurity, that you don't feel like you're as good. You're not going to create as good of a sermon as AI in some ways.
Yeah.
In other ways, you will, though, because you are the human being on the ground and you know your people. So it is better, and you have the image of God in you, which machines don't. But there are going to be kind of eloquence and illustrations and things, and even exegesis where it might do a better job than you. It doesn't matter. That's not, God has gifted you to do the job. Anyways, generative AI will stunt your growth. I talked about that kind of skill drain that can happen. Using a machine instead of doing the work, and loving your people as thinking about them as you write the sermon. It can also dehumanize the church, outsourcing something to a machine instead of a human doing it. I don't want pastors to talk like ChatGPT talks. You have a person come up to you in the congregation and they say, hey, I have an idea. I want to sell some twigs. Like, you shouldn't butter them up. Like, you got to say, are you serious? Like, you got to be yourself, right? And I think Jesus talks in a completely different way than ChatGPT. I think you should be more familiar with the tone and tenor of Jesus Christ than you are with the tone and niceties of ChatGPT. Also, one reason why pastors, I know, they don't want to admit to using ChatGPT or sermons.com or whatever, is because they know that some people won't like it. Some people might be okay with it, but some people won't. Well, read Romans 14 and get back to me. What does it say about secondary issues and introducing them and causing division? It says that if it's a secondary issue, then those who are strong and have maybe the conscience to use it should hold back for the sake of the weak, not allowing them to stumble. This is why your church might, when you celebrate the Lord's table, you might use grape juice instead of wine because you understand that principle. Well, so too with AI. Don't introduce AI into your sermon prep process when some people in your congregation might leave your church if they found out you were doing that. Maybe you should just hold off on this brand new technology. And then, yes, it might be immoral. It's just too early to know. But we have ontological concerns. Well, we forget what it means to be human. We have justice and bias concerns. Weird is Western, educated, individualistic, rationalistic, democratic. Like, it does tend to be associated with that. So you might not speak to the congregation in full in the diversity of Canada and London because you're relying on ChatGPT. You need to speak to the people in your church, which you know better. Relational concerns, will we still meet at the table? Will we still prioritize fellowship and relationship and human beings holding hands, being at the bedside, not just sending a chat generated message? Epistemological, will we be duped by fake truth? We really need to do our own homework. Environmental, there's a lot of questions with this. I don't always get into it just because it's such a messy subject. I don't think it's actually that bad from a water perspective, but yes, it requires a lot of power. Informative, what does it turn you into as you use it more? Do you become more like machines? So here's my catechism, and then I'll turn it over to John to ask questions after I share a couple of resources. So
Yes,
is
please.
AI positive, negative, or neutral? I would say, as I started today, that it's like all technology. It's both good and cursed. Why is AI both, or why is AI good, I should say? Well, God instructed Adam and Eve to create. We should create like our creator God. Why is AI cursed? Well, because of the fall. All creation is cursed. So we're going to expect some negative consequences. Don't just say AI is good or AI is bad. It's a mixture of both. In whose image is AI made? It's made in our image, our fallen nature. What is it like? It's like a digital assistant, a steroid, and a potential idol. And I like to say this as well, it's an it, not a he or a she, right?
Mm,
Doctrine of the Trinity, the Holy Spirit can be referred to as a he, but AI does not have that personality. It does not
mm,
have that characteristic. We should not refer to it as he or she, even if it's been created to have that kind of image. Just like idols, it doesn't actually have that image truly. It's a fake image.
mm,
Can AI tell us what to do? A brief story. I added, you know, some of those cars have a GPS on them. Well, I turned my GPS one day with my kids in the car to a location that we were not driving to. And I
mm.
kept driving in the way that we wanted to go.
Right.
And then the GPS kept saying, turn left. Or
Mm,
like, then it was like, oh, perform a U turn at the next stop. And I said to my kids, I was like, your school is that way, but the GPS, the technology is telling us to go this way. What should we do? Should we listen to it or should we tell it what to do? And they laughed with me and were like, no, tell it what to do, you know? And now they love this game so much that now they always want me to turn it on, and it's really annoying, but I do it with them because it's like the point is, you don't let technology tell you what to do.
mm,
You tell it what to do.
mm,
Like, you instruct the machine, here's where I want to go, and then allow it to help you. You tell it, here's what I want and what I don't want, and you allow it to help you. But you do not let it tell you what to do, because that's not how it works. And
mm,
by the way, all machines are told to do something. ChatGPT is not merely a machine. There are humans behind it guiding the answers. So there's always humans telling machines what to do. AI cannot tell us what to do. It's machine, or it's people telling the machine to tell us something. We're going to guide it, not let it guide us. Did God know we would make AI? Of course, God's sovereign over all things. Did God want us to use technology? Yes, to steward and cultivate creation and to push back the curse.
mm.
Um, so I'll let John ask questions, but a few resources. One um, is that I think we need to study theology, guys. Like, what is the church? What is the human person? Why do we exist? It's so important to study theology. I enjoy courses that I've taken at Heritage College and Seminary. You might as well. I do have a podcast, as John referenced. We talk about AI a lot. And so we get into more detail on all of these issues. And there's a lot of great books written on this by humans. And so you can read what humans have said, human Christians. Excuse me, all the ones on the screen are there, and they can be super, super helpful. All right, John.
That is awesome, Andrew. Thank you so much. I'm sure for a lot of us, I think this is like just like taking information through the fire hose. It's like there's just a lot that we learn through, but I think these are and I really encourage a lot of listeners today just to go back and listen if you need to, like, listen like 2 or 3 times just to get a better understanding of this, because I think that this is a lot of these stuff that Andrew shared today are so critical. Um, as a father of the 2 kids, and I'm sure a lot of pastors think about use of AI in our children's generations, and I have to think about the AI and think about my children as well. And you mentioned about how dangerous it could be for children to use the AI, and I completely agree with it. But the challenge I often find is the such an easy access to the AI for children. Like I didn't even have to tell my kids how to access ChatGPT. They already know how to access ChatGPT. And then like my kids, like my son who is in the grade six, is already using it without ever being instructed how to use it. Like he already goes to the ChatGPT. The other day when he was working on the homework at home, and then usually he comes to me as like, that going back to that story, like he usually comes to me and asks the questions. And then the other day he was just working on it. He never comes to ask any questions to me. So I was just became curious. So I went to him when he was working on the computer, and I noticed that he was asking all these questions to the ChatGPT and trying to find out some of these stuff. And I told him, like, you shouldn't use the ChatGPT for that. I mean, first of all, like, you shouldn't use ChatGPT for your homework at all, first of all.
Yeah.
But I, I was just, stunned by the realization that just it's such an easy access, like for kids to get to. I mean, you could just go to ChatGPT or Gemini or any of these AI websites, and their free tiers are already generous enough for these kids to go and search and work and to have a conversation with them. So, and especially nowadays where children, I, not at my home, but I notice like a lot of my friends and a lot of pastors nowadays even too, like allow their kids to have their phones or devices on them already with some access, I mean, Wi-Fi or internet accesses. So it's almost like already out of the hands, so to speak, like, right? Like the kids already have access to it. So how do we try to keep our children away from the AI as much as you can? Do you have any advice on that? Like, what should we do as a parent when the kids have already easy access to these use of AI? Yeah.
No, that's a great question because it brings up some of the complicated nature of this.
Mm-hmm.
So if it depends how old your kids are, obviously, and what maturity level they're at, because you're going to have more freedom to make more restrictions when they're under the age of 10, for example. A little easier to add those restrictions. And you can set up in your home certain rooms and places. Like I know a family, they have a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, and they do not allow phones in their bedrooms. And I think that's an excellent rule. Like, so they allow for the phones, even though it's younger than I'd prefer. They allow for the phones, but at least it's always in the family room, and that allows for a level of oversight. That, for example, sexting is incredibly popular with teenagers. One in three teenagers say that it is normal to send nude pictures to other teens.
Wow.
One in three say it's normal. Now, obviously, 2/3 don't, but it's going to be something that they encounter regularly. One in three teens have seen a nude picture from another teenager that was not shared with that other teenager's permission. So this is as soon as you're introducing a phone into their hands, you're introducing a high degree of danger. And I do think sometimes parents need to pull back, apologize to their kids. Hey, I was too early with this. I made a mistake. Jonathan Haidt, in his book, The Anxious Generation, he says, we have overprotected kids in the real world and underprotected them online. So we have said, oh, I don't know if you can go over to your friend's house because, oh, it's too far away. I don't know if you should be biking that late. And it's like, are you kidding me? You can't let your 10-year-old bike to your friend's house that's 5 minutes away. Like, is it really that dangerous? Like, go bike with them the first time. The next time, bike with them some of the way. And then the next time, just let them bike on their own. Like, let them experience, even if you live in a city. Like, this is ridiculous, the way that we don't walk with we walk with our kids to school or drive them to school now instead of letting them walk. We don't let them experience real risk in the real world, but we let them experience all sorts of risks online. So this is something that I think as time goes on, more and more people are pushing against us. Gen Z is pushing against it. They realize the problems. They've grown up with their parents always on their phone instead of talking to them. So it's interesting. Like some Gen Z is super bullish on AI, but some is not. So I would say just every small step makes a difference.
Mm,
Consider how can you retrain their brain if they're younger than 25, the same habits that you say they're so hard to break now, it's also easier now than ever to introduce new habits, to
mm,
rewire their brain toward different dopamine receptors so that they get bored sometimes. Oh, that's what they need. And so that they sit and struggle with that math problem for an hour
that's
without
right.
having any help. That's what they need. And ChatGPT will tell you can turn on learning mode and it'll help, but it's what do you actually need to grow in as a Christian? The fruit of the spirit,
Mm,
patience,
mm,
self-control. That's actually what's most important in their learning development, not whether or not they can get the right answer or even understand how to get the right answer. Can
mm,
they get the patience and self-control through
mm,
that hour of struggle?
mm.
That's more important. So anyways,
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and thank you. Yes, yeah, absolutely, I agree with that. Now, related to that as well, I think you know, when I was a kid, cell phone has been invented, right? And then by the time that I get into high schools and university, now people are beginning to use the cell phone a lot, and we are, so to speak, late adopters to the cell phones and these technologies that are available. Now, I'm thinking about the generation alpha and youngers, and the fact that some of these kids are born into the world where the AI has already becoming a norm of a lot of businesses and a lot of practices. And I mean, some of the people are even already speaking about, possibility of AI just teaching the kids at schools down the, a decade or two later that, that all the kids will be not taught by the humans anymore, but AIs will do most of the jobs. And teachers' role is really just to facilitate that kind of environment, so to speak. So AI is becoming more and more invasive and becoming a norm of our life, and our children are born into this and then beginning to adopt. One of the concerns that I have, and one of the concerns that we should have as a church, I find, is you touched on this briefly earlier as well about the our understanding of the human identity, our understanding of what human is. And I think also when I talk with a lot of young people today, like teenagers or university and college students and so on, they're now concerned about their future because all these news are coming out about how the AI is just going to replace a lot of jobs and so on, and they're start to think. I was having a conversation with one of the kids who just went to the university with the marketing program, and she's already thinking about, but like all these marketing industry now is all being replaced by AI. Like, they're not even hiring new people anymore because AI can handle all the marketings now, like the marketing creations and marketing strategies and everything the AI is starting to handle. But you touch on that, how now AI is taking over all of these a lot of responsibilities that we once have thought that they were ours, but is now AI can handle far better than us. And I'm sure like a decade or down or later, I mean AI can probably do far, 10 times better than we can ever do. Um, and that not only concerns the market and jobs and so on, but it really begs that question: who are we then? Because if we can't perform or and a lot of us find our identity in our jobs, our achievements, and the things that we do. But if AI can do far better than us, who are we? I remember having listening to this a podcast. Uh, those Asian a Go board game, and there
yeah,
was
yeah.
a time when the Google Deep Learning created this AlphaGo, this a deep learning board game, a software that makes him compete against one of the best players in that board game. And then he went into that game with such a confidence, but he lost to the deep learning, and he was shocked. And in that podcast, he talked about not just about the losing to the AI, but he talked about that whole identity crisis that he began to have since then, because he says, then who am I as a board game player who can't even beat the computer anymore? Because his understanding before was the whole board game was like almost like an art to him. It's the art of finding this new solution in the problem that he faces, and his responsibility as a professional player was to showcase or to teach others how to solve those problems, how to navigate through that, those problems that they face in that game, and then be able to navigate and then find the right solutions to it. But after some years, he began to learn from the AI how to do these things, and he goes, then what am I? Like, what am I doing here? And he shared he lost all the interest and the fun in playing that game altogether because of it. And I think we're going to face a similar issue where not just the board game, but now like in the education, in the health, and in so many areas, writings and so on, and we begin to ask, so who are we and what are we supposed to do? And I think that's gonna hit a lot of crisis in the younger demographic as they grow up, and then they begin to ask, so what am I supposed to do? Like, after I graduate my high school and university, like, what's my purpose then, right? So I'm curious to hear what you like. So my question is, like, as a pastors and as a parents and as a people who mentor and help the younger people, how can we help and how can we train them so that we help them to find that identity and how and then navigate through that such a challenging time with this whole AI just rising. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. I'll answer it in a couple parts because on one level, as Christians, we have the resources to speak to what it means to be human. Um, those first three chapters of Genesis, we see that to be human means to be dependent on God, to be dependent on the world, and to be dependent on other people. That is core to who we are. Kelly Kapic talks about this in his book, You're Only Human. He has a shorter version of that book as well that just came out this year. But I asked him in one of our podcasts, he was a guest, and I said, what does it mean to be human? And he said, dependent on God, dependent on the world, dependent on others. And we don't often think about that because we're so trained in independence that we don't realize that to be human means to be a creature and to not have everything. You need God. You need food. You need a relationship. That's the story of Adam and being alone, and it's not good for man to be alone. So we have a lot in Scripture that really gives us a way of speaking to what it means to be human. And even the fact, like, a lot of people focus on the image of God, and I think we should talk about how that gives us inherent dignity and worth to be made in His image. Of course, male and female, it's just a profound thing that we have in Scripture. But we also need to think about the incarnation. We're coming up to that kind of season. There's ways that in your Advent preaching, you can be relating that to the vision for humanity, that Jesus became one of us. It was so important to him. He so valued flesh and bones that he became one of us. And I think about the physicality of Jesus, the fact that he became a baby. Like, it's every time you think about it, something just kind of breaks in your brain because you're just in wonder at the majesty and holiness and everything of God, becoming a babe and becoming frail and becoming dependent on God, dependent on others, dependent on the world. And so I do think that it kind of changes the way we value things rather than human doings. We're human beings. It's not about how much you can do. It's about who you are. And that's what actually matters most. So I wanted to pull this up because this would be some of the recommended reading. I mean, there's so many books on social media, but in the top left corner by John Parrott, Social Media Pressure is a book written to teens. It's a devotional for teenagers that you could read through with your teen. it assumes that they already have a phone, that they're already kind of in this world,
Mm,
but it gives a lot of practical guidance and just things to work on, maybe some ideas on activities that they could do to help kind of balance more properly their relationship with
mm,
technology.
mm,
So I would say that's a great one to read. I mean, all the books on this screen I would recommend. Digital Liturgies by Samuel D. James. It's probably the most, I don't know, well written. I just found myself nodding along and just giving a fist pump in the air during it because it has some really well thought through Christian wisdom for our digital age, and it came out recently as well. And then Tony Reinke's, if you're looking for a biblical theology of technology, this one by Tony Reinke gets into a whole assortment of stuff. In
mhm,
my course at Heritage College and Seminary next semester, it'll be at the college and seminary level, both offered at the same time. This will be one of the textbooks, God, Technology, and the Christian
mm,
Life.
mm,
So I'm not a parent of teens, but I know it's a challenge. I know that as soon as you take away the phone, that leads to a number of other problems. I know that bullying happens, um, not only on the internet, you have it online, you have more access to bullying, but if you don't have a phone, then they will probably get bullied to some degree for not having a phone and not
mhm.
having access. So it's hard. But it's not like we've never faced sin before as parents, right? Like it's not like we've ever faced, oh, this is the first time where our kids are living in a fallen world. So it's like this is going to happen. You're
Yeah.
going to deal with whether it's chariots and swords, or in our age it's Snapchat and
Mhm,
OpenAI. Like it's just a different problem in our age, and we've always been required to grow in wisdom, and parenting has never been A, B, and C. It's always been A to Z and more. So it's just part of that. As you are a parent, you too have the opportunity to depend upon God, to depend
mhm.
upon others, your church included. Don't try to do it alone, and to depend on this world, and just go on a nature walk. Maybe that's honestly like
Yeah.
go on a nature walk, eat food together, like just have some rituals in your family that aren't screen related, and that'll go a long way. We recently have been inviting someone over to our house, and I was so encouraged because she made the comment, and I don't say this to boast, but um, it was just deeply encouraging to me that she said, I don't read with my kids, and you guys do. And I just realized like I need to be doing that. And she started doing that with her kids, reading to them one book before bed every night, and they go to bed way better just because now she's spending that time with them and having that meaningful encounter rather than a screen before bed or something like that.
Mm,
There's a way to be more analog rather than digital and to flourish as a family because of that.
yeah. It sounds like it just makes me kind of think about, how, like, I mean, obviously, like, I mean, as a pastors and leaders in the ministries, that we need to be theologian in some way. Like, we need to be all like practical theologian in our own ministry context, but not just the pastors and leaders anymore. But I'm perhaps not just the nowadays, but I mean, it has always been true where it feels like all the parents, all the teachers, and all the students, like everyone, we need to be in some way like a practical theologian in our own way to, because we can't always go to the pastors. We can always go to like, parents to kind of, okay, well, I'm struggling with my whole like, human identity crisis. Like, what am I supposed to do? Or I'm struggling with my, my obsessions or my addictions to the phones and so on. Like, but like, we all need to be in some way like a theologian in a way that we need to think through what we actually practice or what we actually do, and then like theologically actually digest and understand, and so on. So that is just so crucial. And that's a very profound. If, can I ask you one more question? And this is less
Yeah.
related with kind of our kind of personal um, uh, 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 challenges that we face, but more for the ministry, for the pastors. You shared about how there are positive uses of the AI as well, especially for pastors in terms of like the administrative challenges, or some of these uses that we can have with the generative AI. Now, most of the pastors at the same time are not tech savvy, and they probably use ChatGPT or most of the AIs as kind of almost like a search engine, basically, right? They simply just search for something, and that's great. You can use that ChatGPT or any of these AIs for search engines. That's fine. But for those who might be interested in going a little further and say, well, I like to actually, I love to have, like, who would love to have a assistant beside you, an agent who can, do a lot of work for you in administrations. Um, Administration, I know, is often for a lot of pastors a pain point. So, um, what would you recommend if a pastor wants to, explore in finding ways to use AI to learn a little bit of how you can use it for the good, like for the digital assistants and some of the uses? Do you have any recommendations where they can go to?
Yeah, well, I personally use Claude the most. Um, though I have been using ChatGPT, but I'm going to be unsubscribing to ChatGPT and using Claude going forward. I just put it into Claude right now what it
Okay.
thinks would be good ideas. As a pastor, Claude can be a valuable tool. Yes, yes. Preamble. Great question. Look at it butter me up. Anyways, research historical context, theological concepts, or word studies. That is true. It is pretty good at that. It can make mistakes, so you always need to, if you've taken some seminary courses, that will help you to not get tricked. But it
Mm,
will give some good context and historical context and things like that as you're studying a passage. Sometimes you can use it too, just to like the real basics. Like I'm going through First Samuel, or I was, and I was kind of confused about the chronology of it. And so I just asked it, like, can you remind me of the chronology and that sort of thing? And it did a good job of just going
mm,
over the basics. Help organize notes or outlines. Yeah, it can, but you got to be careful because sometimes the way that you crystallize the organization of a message can go a long way toward the
mm,
quality of it for you
yeah.
to put that hard work in. But you can finish a sermon, like write it if you write it or the notes, and then put it into and ask for feedback. You
Mm,
can use it to just get feedback, and that might give you ideas. It might not. You might not use them, but I would say that's okay. Yes, it can suggest illustrations or applications, which you'd then evaluate. I agree with that. I did ask it to not replace spiritual stuff.
yeah.
Practice articulating complex theological ideas. Yeah, maybe. I would not use it for drafting discussion questions. Some people disagree with me. They disagree with me hard on that. They're like, this is what AI should be used for. You created the sermon. You shouldn't write questions. I just think writing questions, discussion questions, is so important. And to let
Mm,
someone else do that, pastors should be the experts of asking questions.
yeah.
They should be so good at it. Jesus was
Yeah.
amazing at asking questions. Just study his questions. Create study guides or handouts. I have used a PowerPoint for presentations like this and then uploaded the PowerPoint and said,
Mm,
make me a handout. So for teaching context, like different than sermons, sermon is to the heart for the most part. All good
mm,
sermons include teaching, but sermons are often more to the heart. And so in those situations, you don't actually want people to be taking notes for most of the sermon, or at least for a chunk of the sermon, because they're just so caught up in worshiping God.
mm,
Um, but when you're doing a Sunday school lesson or things like that, yeah, creating some study guides or handouts, that makes sense. Age appropriate explanations of theological concepts. Yeah, you could. I don't know. Yeah, it's just like it's that leaning towards letting it create something for you, going through the practice of creating it yourself. But I see the value of that. Analogies, yeah. Sometimes it's really good at writing. It's just so tough for me because I like to write well, and then
mm,
I end up putting something in and it writes something better than I would have come up with. And I
mm,
have a decision in that moment. Do I use what it wrote? Would I have come up with this on my own? And
mm,
sometimes I'm just like, no, I'm not going to use it. Sometimes I take
mm,
that and it inspires me to try to think of something better that's still unique to me. But you got
mm,
to figure that out on
yeah.
your own.
Mm,
Some of this organization of church documents, like, I got to be honest with you, it can save a ton of time. You can
yeah.
copy and paste so much context. Google search, you have less than 10 words, right?
Mm,
Otherwise, you add too many, it gives too much context. With AI, add a ton of context. Say,
mm,
this is my church policy on this. This is my church policy on this. Like, and now I have a question about this unrelated thing, maybe, but at least you're giving it more context. Now, yes, you might be giving away from some data, but you can turn on in settings.
Yeah.
Let's see what my settings say. Um,
Just for those who don't know, some of these languages sound very technical, but like when Andrew says like adding more context, basically means like giving
oh yeah,
more information, like giving
yes,
more text into the prompt, or maybe even like including your like text files or doc files into the chat, so that it actually has more information for the chat to work through, and then and give you the more robust answer out of it. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Um, and just always, whenever you're using any app, check the settings, go into it, see what you have the
yeah.
capabilities for. So in my account, I have the privacy set that I'm not going to improve Claude. I'm not letting it take my data to
Yeah.
improve the system. Some people like to do that because they're like, I'm giving it Christian content. I want it to create more Christian content. I get that. I'm not doing that. I tell it my personal preferences in this way because I want it to give me stuff related to my
Hmm.
PhD work. Um, but yeah, you can kind of see
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
some things there to keep in
Yeah.
mind.
I think a lot of pastors don't realize how powerful sometimes these generative AIs can become in like, especially like when you talked about earlier about the administrative tasks. Like, we tend to think about just giving a simple prompt as a search engine to get an answer. But like, I use all the time, for instance, like where I would record my meeting in audio and
Right.
just simply drop in my audio file and then tell it to write a minutes, like a meeting summary for me with action items. And then it will just write a great meeting summary for me and with
Hmm.
action items. Like, otherwise, I would have to sit down and transcribe or have someone to like take the notes. And then that person can't participate in that meeting at all because he's busy writing the notes. So, there are lots of ways where we can use in our administrative tasks that can actually save time. And then the point I guess I want to make with that is that like we should use ChatGPT or any of these Claudes like AIs to save the time where we can, that things that that drained us, but actually spend more time in the things that actually matter, like writing sermons. That's where we
Hmm.
need to spend time on our own. uh, but I noticed a lot of pastors that ended up spending a lot of time in things that do matter, but like like administration not going to save lives. For instance, it's not going to transform people's lives. But a lot
Yeah.
of pastors ended up spending so much time in these like meetings and businesses and administrators, and then ended up spending so little time in actually what really matters, like writing sermons, finding like giving enough time to come up with the good questions for small group conversations. Like,
Hmm.
those are the things that I think pastors and leaders need to spend more time in, not with the AI, but that's not where you need to save the time. That's where you need to spend time. So yeah, but it's great that we can find so much through this. And thank you, Andrew, so much for some of these. Just, I mean, there's so much. There's so much in this presentation that I think even I myself will take some time to think through. And I love the resources that you provide. I'm looking forward to get to some of these. And then you mentioned that there is this course that you're going to be teaching at the Heritage College. So hopefully some of the people will even look up and consider. I mean, you don't have to be a pastor to take this course, I believe. I mean, you
Correct.
can audit, you can take the course if you're just simply a regular, just ordinary person who's interested in learning more about the technology and your faith. I think you should just go for it, not for the degree or for credentials, but just for the sake of learning more. And so,
Yeah. To
yeah,
audit, it's only $300 Canadian, and that gets you all 12 courses, all 3 hours, or all 12 lectures, 3 hours per lecture. They'll be split up, and you can join online. And I believe they have recording software for all of them, so that if you are registered for the course, then you'll get access to the software. And that's not shared publicly because there is good class discussion, and they have a really good setup at Heritage. I mean, you can drive from London to Cambridge
Yep.
is not that far, but
No.
it is a really good tech setup where it's a massive screen on the back of the room. So it's like you're just sitting in the back row of the class. You can speak up and the whole class hears you. Um, Sometimes it's even better than some people in the class who don't speak up. So, yeah, no, that'd be a great place to learn. And it will be, it's not just for pastors, but it definitely is geared toward ministry context. We'll be talking about some of those things in detail, talking about church technology and the impact of that. For example, PowerPoint screens has its benefits and drawbacks. We need to think
Yep.
about all these kinds of things. So, anyways, I appreciate you having me. Appreciate following along, and I, of course, I have the podcast, which pretty much all our episodes are free. We do have some like Patreon content, but that's a free place to learn more of how we are working through this difficult issue of AI, because there's pros and cons. It's a mix.
Yep. Yeah. Or any technology. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Andrew, so much for this. I really appreciate your time, really appreciate your content, and really appreciate the resources you provided as well. I'm so looking forward to connecting with you in the future as well. We're not so far away from each other, so I think there will be a great chance that we can drop in, and who knows, maybe dropping in your course and
Yeah,
just
who
learn a little
knows? Who
more
knows?
as well. So,
Well, thanks, John.
yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah. So, um, I think Laura, our administrative, will probably wanted to know the like probably we will likely e-transfer you the reimbursement, not reimbursement, sorry, the honorarium that I was going to say. But just let us know like what email address that we should use. Is that the same email address that we use to communicate, or?
Yeah, I wasn't even sure. I was like, maybe that's fine if you're not able to, because people didn't show up and pay money. So like it's you,
Oh,
you don't have to pay me either. That's okay.
no, no, no.
Um,
We weren't going to charge for this session anyway. Even if we offered it as in
right.
person anyway. We do receive donations, and then we run some. I mean, we run some events obviously with min fee, but some others we don't. So this is one of that we just wanted to bless our community. So yeah. So
Well, yeah,
uh,
thank you. It'd be the same email address. Yeah.
yeah. Well, thanks, Andrew, so much. Can I just pray for you before we go? I just wanted to bless you.
Yeah. Please.
Yeah, God, I just give you thanks for this wonderful presentation that Andrew gave us, and also the resource that he provided. I really pray that, Lord, that these contents and the resource that he provided us, that some of these tips that he gave us really will help a lot of pastors in our city. Not just probably in our city, but it can help anyone who's really struggling with the whole idea of the AI or technology, for that matter, in the ministries, and also for parents and for other people who are dealing with a younger demographic who may not have a full understanding of what it means to use the AI in their personal lives and so on. I really pray that, Lord, that these will help some of these people down the road many times, Lord. And Lord, I want to bless Andrew for what he does in his ministries and his studies, Lord. Just continue to bless him with your knowledge and wisdom, and allow him to use that knowledge that he gains through these to help other ministries and other pastors and other people, other Christians who deal with these similar issues in their lives as well, Lord. And I want to bless the course that he will be teaching at the college, Lord. I pray that, Lord, that many will benefit through that, and be able to use those wisdom that they acquire to run the ministry better as well, Lord. And we thank you for these technologies that you have given us, and you allow us to
Hmm.
create to benefit the lives that we minister, Lord. And we really pray that, Lord, that they will use the technology in a positive way, in a way that you allow us to, and you encourage us to use, but allow us not to idolize and make them as our God, or make them as our go-to solution for all of it, but really allow us to see the value of spending a time in struggles and wrestling with God, in some of these matters, especially spiritual and matters that's related with learning the Word of God, Lord. So we thank you for those wisdom that we gain, that value of spending time with you in that, Lord. So we pray for the blessing of our pastors and listeners today, and I thank you for all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, John. Appreciate
Thank you, Andrew, so much for this. So yeah, really appreciate it. Okay, I hope you have a great day today. Yeah.
You too. I hope you're able to catch up with all the stuff that you got on your plate. So maybe
Yeah.
even you have more on your plate to eat. But all right. Take care, John.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Well, hello. I hope you enjoyed the video of the conversation with Andrew Noble, and hopefully it has given you some insights on how AI is impacting our lives and ministries. For this portion of the video, I'd like to share with you how you can utilize these AI tools that are available for our ministries. And some of these tools that I'm showing you are a little more advanced, but at the same time, I have to also share that a lot of tools that I developed using AI, I didn't have a lot of tons of knowledge on coding. I have a basic knowledge of the coding, and I was still able to do most of these. So, and I know a lot of pain points that we Christian pastors have or Christian ministry leaders have is the administrative work. So I wanted to find out if AI can help me in these administrative areas in my work. So, for instance, this is an automation system that's already available. I didn't develop the automate. This is the platform that I use. And in this platform, this is called NAN. In this platform, I built this automation system where it will basically sync between my Google Calendar /task and my Notion. So I usually use Notion for a lot of note takings and also often my calendar as well on my computer. But then on my phone, I use Google Calendar and Google Task. So I want to make sure that those two platforms are syncing each other, making sure all the information are up to date between these two platforms. So this NAN automation system automatically makes sure that those are all synced. So this is no AI. This is just simply the automation system, basically just a coding that makes sure that it syncs it. But where AI comes in is every morning, AI will read my Google Calendar and my Notion, and then sends me an email to recommend how I can optimize my day, what task needs to be done first and when, and so on. So basically, it reads my calendar and then reads my tasks that needs to be done that day, and then each task I usually put information about how much time each task will take, or how much, what priority level do I give to it, low, high, and so on. And then also when's the due date of each task. And then it reads that information, and then it basically recommends when I should do what, and so on. And then basically what I can do is I can use my Gemini in my Gmail, and then basically ask Gemini to transfer all of these recommendations into my Google Calendar, and then it will automatically populate them in my Google Calendar. Or I can also tell Gemini that, instead of these recommendations, I like to modify or add or remove a certain task, and so on. So every morning, this is my simple routine after my devotion, and then says, okay, this is how my day looks like, and so on. Another pain point I have is a finance/reimbursement process. I hate, looking after all the receipts and going through that reimbursement process and so on. So I basically built a system where it does automatically. So what it does is that so I built a system where I can simply use my phone to take a photo of my receipts or invoices. And there's this a page I created where I can upload my receipt. So for instance, here's the one receipt, and then I can upload it, and then the AI then will process this image. So turn it into a text and then read the text and basically sort this information as a receipt, and then start to populate my reimbursement form. So here's the image, and then here's all the items that I purchased in this receipt. And then I can determine, let's say, okay, so I bought a bunch of these items, but this item was actually, it happens a lot, right? Where, you bought some of the items for yourself as well as a ministry in one receipt. So I didn't buy this for ministry, so I shouldn't include this in my reimbursement. So I exclude that. So then it will automatically calculate my total that I should request for reimbursement. And then I can basically submit this. And then it goes into my Google Sheet, and then you can see that now it's included in here, so that it saves all this information. At the end of at the beginning of each month, basically, AI then automatically runs this automation to process every receipt that I either uploaded there, or also I uploaded in my Google Drive. So sometimes I have these emails that I receive with invoices or receipts, and then I just dump that into my Google Drive. And then on the first day of every month, the AI will read all of that, all of those receipts and invoices, PDFs and images, as well as those receipts that I manually uploaded using my phone with a camera, and then it will then give me this, so that I can click on this link to see my reimbursement form, and then it will automatically read and then gives the descriptions of the items that I purchases, and then it will suggest the budget lines, and then all the receipt images are uploaded here. And also, if it is not a Canadian dollars, then it will automatically convert it in. It will automatically convert it for me as well. And then gives me this entire summary. And then basically I can just forward this email to my treasurer to get reimbursed, and then also to update my finance as well. Also, if you are a pastor, I know if you speak sermons every Sunday morning, you ended up with so many sermons that you have done in the past, and then you sometimes lose track of what you spoke, where and when, and so on. So I decided to develop my own personal sermon library, basically. So this is currently connected to my Google Drive, and it reads my past sermons in, I believe, about 5 years or so. And then I can basically go to search engine here. So this is my personal library search. I can look for, let's say, I want to find a sermon that I have done on Jonah. And then I can simply just look up. And then here, I found a bunch of these sermons that I have done that are related to the passage of Jonah. Or I can go to this chat, so I can talk to AI librarian, basically. And I can ask, what sermons have I done in the past on the book of Jonah? So you can see, so the AI librarian will search all the information for me and then find any, and so on. And this is not just for, just searching for sermons on certain passages, but I can look up the illustration stories that I share, and I can ask the AI library. And I think I've done a story on this person, Everett Swanson, before. Can you find me that sermon and then and tell me what story I shared about him, and so on. And the other thing that I develop is as the church is becoming more multicultural, and then also we see more people from other nations with different languages. I felt that we need to develop a live translation system where if you're not really good at speaking and listening in English, there should be a way for them to be able to understand the message in the church in their own language. So I developed this live translation service using AI. So, there is already live translation service out there, but they're super expensive. So I asked the AI to make this a system that will translate live of the English messages. So here, I can start capturing the audio using this web application I made. And then basically, people can go to this web page and then open it up on their phone and watch lively the message. So, for instance, here, hello everybody. It's so great to speak to you this morning in the name of Jesus Christ, and I hope that you will enjoy the time here and learn something new about Jesus Christ and his kingdom that's available to you now, and so on. So you can see that this is picking up my audio and then translate it down here for me, so that and right now this is in Korean. So people who speak Korean but maybe not fluent in English can watch this, and then I can change the setting here and so on. And I can, right now this is Korean, but I can do this in any language. There is this translation service that I'm using, and that service is using AI basically. So I can change into any language in the world, I believe, using that system. So it obviously costs money, but a lot less than what I would have to pay for these professional services. So you can see that there are tons of things that you can do with AI. And I've been using AI to really figure out how to tackle on these pain points in my ministries, and then so that I can actually focus on the things that I really enjoy and that matters. For instance, so for me, administrative work is the pain points, and then I'm trying to use AI to save the time and also do less work on the administrative myself, so that I can spend more time in meeting people and teaching and preaching and helping people to come to know Jesus better. So if this is helpful to you, and then if you'd like to learn more about these AI tools, and then actually if you're interested in using some of these tools that I developed myself, you can talk to me in the future, and I'm happy to share these tools with you. But then some of these tools are not free. I mean, they're not expensive, but some of these tools are, it costs money. So I'm happy to help with you, but just to know that some of these services are not completely free, but may require some investment, and I'm happy to walk you through and then figure out what can be helpful for you. So if you are interested in that, you can use the following information on the screen, and then you can contact me to talk further. But I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day.